Hello, hello, tons of fun for everyone. It's time for us to talk about a band that I don't know if I've talked about before. I can't remember. My memory is fuzzy in my old age of near 30. Oh, Lord. Now everyone knows how old I am. Now people can make jokes. Jokes! Love jokes. We're here to talk about Slough Feg. Originally they were called the Lord Weird Slough Feg, a very interesting name, but this is a heavy metal band that has some folk elements and even sometimes some power metal elements that come out of Pennsylvania but now reside in the San Francisco area. Something that resonates from the Pennsylvania area, and the lead singer, after writing some blogs before their last album was released, was considered to be a bit of a musical elitist, a bit of a snob. Sounds a little familiar, aside from the fact that, I'm not in a band and I haven't relocated to San Francisco. Yet. Wink, wink. Prepare the freaking Golden Gate Bridge. Might happen one day, you never know. But we're here to talk about their new album, Digital Resistance. Digital Resistance here in 2014. This is their 9th studio album. I have been following these guys pretty vehemently ever since studio album number 3. The fact that I haven't hit them up with a review, to my knowledge at least, is probably just because I've kind of kept them as a little tight, guarded secret for myself. Which is kind of, really, really selfish of me, but I really like these guys. I dig them a lot. These guys are very interesting. I really like their pattern of albums. They definitely have a lot of great value to them. There's some humor that's really embedded within some of them, and that can be told on this album by their very, very first track on this album, Analog Avengers / the Burton and Russell's Sex Den. That's right, Burton and Russell and his Sex Den. Oh, man. Analog Avengers immediately makes me think of kind of something that would be very similar to this, at least in my opinion, Keyboard Warriors. Because whenever I think of Digital Resistance, I immediately think of the digital age. I think of technology. I think of the internet. I think of everything that has to do with computing, technology, and even robotics. And I really like how Slough Feg sometimes is able to incorporate concepts into their albums, whether it be directly for the whole album, either that, or if it just seems to be a running theme that runs across many of the tracks of the album while not necessarily being a full and complete concept album. Now, I'm sounding like a snob. That's no surprise. Another thing I'm going to mention here, and I'm kind of almost hoping that they see this, because maybe they can answer this question better than I can. The very last track on this album, this 10-track affair that clocks in at about 40 minutes in length, we're just getting some basics out of the way, is entitled Warrior's Dusk. Now, on the first album that I listened to, their third album, your third album, if you are watching this esteemed member of band, there's a track called Warrior's Dusk. Now, on Dawn of the Dead Man, there's a song called Warrior's Dawn. Is this a continuation? I'm thinking so, just based off of title alone, which is probably relatively ignorant of me. However, I would like to know official answers on this. I really want to know this scoop. This is a big scoop. This is a critical scoop. I must know the answers. But anyway, we go through these 10 tracks, and we have such great titles, such as Habeas Corpus, Ghastly Appendage, Laser Enforcer, and The Price is Nice. I really like that one. That one's just kind of fun to me. And song titles aside, though, I really, really dig the blend that these guys have. There's a very traditional heavy metal vibe that reminds me a lot of bands such as Iron Maiden. There's also that folk element, which reminds me of a band that I don't know if I've ever talked about, Skyclad. I don't think I've ever talked about Skyclad. I'm not sure if maybe anybody in the community has talked about Skyclad, but Skyclad were a fantastic act, and I think they're still together. I actually would have to check my facts on that. But they really had this very cool, unique style on it, where they were able to tell these lavish stories throughout their songs and throughout their music, and it's really good stuff. If you can find any of their work, do yourself a favor and pick it up, check it out. It's definitely well worth it. They are just a really, really unique band, and Slough Feg reminds me a lot of them because of the folkier elements, because of the way in which the music really is able to chug along with the storytelling or the thematic presentation, if we want to be very technical about this, that is presented in the lyricism. And I really dig that because it shows a lot of thought being put into these songs. This is not something where it is a formula. It's not something where, even though some of the sounds may start to sound similar throughout albums, but that's just based around the fact that an album or that a band's career is really becoming very, very lengthy, which is a good thing. I'm glad that Slough Feg has been able to stay around for this long, for 9 albums, and probably going on in the future. They just put out their first ever live album. I mean, these guys are really good, and they've been long deserving of this because of their unique take on the metal universe. But because of that, you know, sometimes the sounds can definitely start to merge together a little bit. Sometimes things can sound a little bit kind of iffy, you know. You might start to think that that's all they do with their sound. They don't really do much with it. But then you listen to the rest of the album and you realize that there are some keynotes, some trademarks that the band is able to really incorporate. A lot of that thumping trademark that kind of gives you an Iron Maiden meets folk element to it. That Warrior's Dusk really showcases very, very well, and that's the reason why I'm thinking it's a callback. That just really, it doesn't get old for me, and I think it's principally because it's such a good idea, and it's an idea that has been taken from contexts in which the idea has really spawned a lot of children. You know, the idea of Iron Maiden's thumping, you know, and galloping bass lines to go right along with the guitar work is something that has spawned numerous children, and is basically potentially, if you want to go the route, has spawned subgenres of heavy metal. If you really want to say that they were one of the granddaddies of power metal, which you could certainly make a strong case for, though it would be one that would cause vehement debate for a long period of time. The album itself flows magnificently. That's one of my principal praises. This is something that flows so nicely whenever you listen to it. It's a very seamless listen. You don't feel as though you're being attacked by way too many deviations. That really is kind of knocking you off of your gravity, knocking you off of your equilibrium. You are basically very well sounded, and you're always going to be able to come back to this. I also like the fact that there are tracks such as Curriculum Vitae that have a little bit of a callback, at least for me, to tracks that I've heard in the past. And one of them that always stays in my mind, I think it's one of the coolest titles ever, Psionic Hallucinations. Also off of Dawn of the Dead Man. I know I'm talking a lot about album number 3. Apologies if you're watching this, that I'm focusing so heavily on an album that probably feels 100 years old to you guys. But that is one of the trademark songs for me. It's the song by Slough Feg I continuously go back to. I continuously love to call that up and play because it's something that has enough of their trademark in it to really showcase their ability, while at the same time trying something completely different, pacing things a little bit more, kind of doing things at a slow churn, but really maintaining a lot of thrust and a lot of pressure, and, you know, really just a lot of spunk to it. This is a great track also if you want to go all the way back to Dawn of the Dead Man, which I encourage you to do. I also encourage you to check out Digital Resistance, because damn, it's got a lot of great things going for it. I love the fact that while that pacing and while that flow is fantastic and magnificent, they do have enough musical tact and enough musical sense where they're able to incorporate each and every aspect of their multiple sides to their sound, really to their advantage. And really, from track to track, sometimes you're wondering which side is really going to be illuminated as opposed to which is going to kind of be just in the background a little bit. And that is kind of cool. Whenever you're able to call back a specific style that you have, that shows a lot of uniqueness. That shows, once again, a lot of thought being put into these tracks individually. And really, also, it shows a lot of thought going into the way in which the album itself is constructed song by song, because it shows that they care about how this is going to sound overall once the listener is kind of listening to it, and that way a listener can also enjoy the whole album in one swoop, as opposed to feeling as though they need to either jump around or maybe, you know, take a break and come back. Overall, this is a great disc. This is, I think, a real sleeper hit, and anybody who really knows this band knows that they are definitely capable of doing that year after year, just simply because there's something about these guys that just boasts a uniqueness and a real individuality that just is hard to be ignored. Anybody who really doesn't like this band, I feel, is only doing so because perhaps this unique sound is not necessarily for them. And I really don't know if it's necessarily they're saying that the band themselves are bad or are really lacking something. Instead, I just feel as though this is an experiment and a sound that may not be really traditionally for everybody, but I do love this unique sound. I've fallen in love with it for many years, and I continue to with Digital Resistance, which I have to give an illuminating 87 out of 100. Some people may think I'm OPing this a little bit. Well, piss off, because that's how I feel. This is going to be repeating on my stereo for quite some time, and I think that whenever we return in December to do Album of the Year 2014, no matter how many goddamn albums are on it, 50, 100, 10,000, whatever, you're definitely probably going to see Slough Feg on this list for Digital Resistance. What did you guys think of the album? Tell me in the comments below. What did you think about Digital Resistance, do you like Slough Feg? Do you not like Slough Feg? Are you indifferent because you've never heard of them? And if so, what are some of your favorite tracks or some of your favorite albums from this band? Thank you very much for checking this out. Definitely leave a like and subscribe. Definitely helps out a tremendous amount. You guys have been wonderful with that already. I am tremendously thankful for everything that you do. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Cover Killer Nation is out.